Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we're all up here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Blockwork's Pulse. My co-host Graham and I talk to artists, builders, and other influential people from all across the Web3 ecosystem. So this is just part of that series. And today we are very excited to be joined by Aave CEO and founder Stani Kulachov and Elena Silenikova, CEO and co-founder of Metis. Um, let's start with a quick round of introductions. Elena, if you could, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what the team is working on over at Metis?
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Elena Sinelnikova. I am a co-founder of Metis and also CEO. As well, I'm also co-founder of and CEO of CryptoChicks, which is the educational hub for women. And that's how I started in the blockchain space, just organizing this educational resource for women so we all can learn together. And then Metis came as one of the projects from the CryptoChicks Hatchery, our incubator, and the idea of decentralized platform for businesses. Web3 economy was very, very close to me because we wanted to see how our female-led startups can actually start in this space. And I decided to take on the role of the CEO in Metis as well. So right now in the Metis team, we have already over 100 people that are working on the project. We are a decentralized community. We're not a company, we're not a corporation. So we have a founding team, but basically we keeping everything decentralized and we're building for people in the space. So we're building DC structure for businesses. We're building the reputation power. This is our matrix RP that's going to be released soon, and all of it based on our layer 2, which we started as the optimistic rollup, and then modernized it to the Smart L2. So that's what we're working on.
Amazing, very exciting. Graham and I are big fans of CryptoChicks. We had the team on a few weeks ago, so very cool to hear about your involvement there. Stani, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on over at Aave?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Stani. I'm the founder and CEO of Aave, and Aave is the team who built the Aave protocol, essentially a smart contract-based protocol where you can supply different kinds of cryptographic assets into the protocol and earn yield on those assets. And you can also use those assets as a collateral and draw liquidity. And usually the typical liquidity is stable coins that are used, for example, across DeFi ecosystem, or some users are essentially converting those stable coins into fiat and financing different goals, paying tuition, financing a mortgage, or could be even like buying a car, whatever the finance goal is. So it gives flexibility on your wealth actually on chain. We've been building the Aave protocol for the past, I would say maybe like few years now, early 2017, and like very early when decentralized finance was simply just maybe one DEX in the ecosystem, and it was still kind of like a new space completely. Since then, we have come quite well in the sense that we have deployed the protocol in multiple other networks, and now with the layer 2s, essentially the Aave protocol is cross-chain and governed by the Aave governance. So essentially the team itself can't go and change different parameters, but there's actually a formalized smart contract-based procedure to change different parameters within the protocol itself. I'm personally a very big fan of Elena's work, and especially the work in CryptoChicks. That's how we met years ago. So for me, the idea of creating a hackathon for women and getting more women into the space, and also inclusivity was a big value proposition, and it is. And seeing kind of like a lot of ideas from those hackathons evolve into different projects, such as Metis has been exciting thing to follow from this side as well. So I'm super excited how things are evolving so far. And at Aave itself, I'm pretty much working more on the product side, on strategy, and the growth side as well. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here and chat about a few of the topics we have at hand.
Great. We're very excited to be joined by both of you. DeFi OG and the how, like, we're very excited. So yeah, Elena, I guess the first question is for you. I'm sure the majority of our audience is familiar with Ethereum L2s, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, can you give us a quick description of what L2s are and why are they important?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you, Kat. L2s are is the scaling solutions for Ethereum. As you know, Ethereum is awesome network, but it has quite a few hurdles. For example, the transactions at times can be very expensive, and as well, transactional speed is could be better. So L2s are the scaling solutions that inherit the security of Ethereum. It means that the transactions are protected by the Ethereum, the data, but it is making the transactions cheaper and faster. So basically, that's what it is. So these are the L2s. So there are a few types of the L2s. The most popular ones are optimistic rollups, when the transactions are getting combined basically in the batches, and the transactions get saved like batch. Let's say thousands of transactions is getting saved in a batch, and this batch is getting written as one transaction to Ethereum and can be verified there because it is stored on Ethereum. So basically, it's making the transactions cheaper because the gas cost, one big gas cost, is split between all the transactions in a batch. And it's also making it faster because users don't have to wait for the transactions to be committed to the Ethereum one by one. So that's optimistic rollup, and the other one is the ZK rollup. It uses, like, basically for the end users, it's a lot of probably smoke and mirrors, but actually it uses the mathematical algorithm that proves that these transactions are actually indeed valid and happened on the network. And the ZK rollups, they also rolling up transactions, but they don't have to store the whole batch of the transaction, all the information there. They just store the proofs of these transactions. So these are the scaling solutions, the L2s.
Thanks, Alina. I think that's super helpful background information just to kind of kick things off. So one question I had for you, though, is when you're doing your intro, you mentioned Metis, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, started as an optimistic rollup, but you're moving to Smart L2. So I'm wondering how that differs from optimistic.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So for the optimistic rollup, so as I said, the transactions are stored in the batches, but what we did, so we don't store all the information all at once on the Ethereum network, but actually store it on demand. So there is the layer on the Metis networks that called the decentralized storage. So, and the full transaction batch is stored there, but the transaction batch hash is actually stored on the Ethereum network. And the validators, so the verifiers, actually the fraud proof, posters, they can find the information in a decentralized storage. If in case it's not found, then the sequencer can actually write the whole batch of the transactions onto Ethereum network. It means that the data is still stored on Ethereum network, but it is stored on demand. So you don't have to pay right away for the whole batch. So you can just pay on demand, and it makes the transactions cheaper. So that's what we call the Smart L2. So we don't store it all at once. It's just stored on demand when it's needed.
Oh, very interesting. And are you already on the Smart L2, or is that something
Yes.
something to come already?
Yes. Yeah. If you go to, for example, L2 fees, I forgot it. The L2 fees website, so you can see our transaction cost is about just a couple of cents, sometimes 1 cent, which is very very cheap, and that is because so we use this smart technology.
Very cool. So what are your thoughts on the three ZK EVM announcements that we saw last week regarding Polygon, Matter Labs, and Scroll?
It's very very exciting. How I think it is revolutionary. So and I'm waiting for the testnet to be released as the Polygon announced, for example. And so once it will be released, so we're going to see how it actually works, and going to, of course, research and test it. I'm very excited that it's going to be open source as well, because the ZK rollups is as I see it, it's the future going forward. It is also was the challenge always to make them EVM compatible, because optimistic rollups are EVM compatible, even EVM equivalent, but the ZK rollups, it's way harder to make them. So, and if they indeed will be released as the EVM equivalent, then it's going to be huge step in all L2s. And I see lots of companies probably and lots of projects going to be adopting this technology, and it being open source is actually very great way going forward. So looking forward to it.
Definitely an exciting development. And just a little bit more background. How do ZKs compare to optimistic rollups?
I think I explained it a little bit at the beginning. So the rollups, they store the whole batch on Ethereum, and the ZKs, they store only the proof, like the mathematical proof on Ethereum, and that's enough for the ZK. So this is how they're different. So the advantages of ZK rollups, you can withdraw from the layer 2 to layer 1 with no delay. With the optimistic rollup, you have to wait for 7 days because the batches are verified by fraud proofers, and they have 7 days to post the fraud proof. So if anything is wrong, for example, in the batch, then the fraud proof, like a fraud proof is going to be anyone, basically. So anyone can verify that and post the fraud proof, and of course they receive the reward for it. But they need 7 days for the 7-day delays. So ZK rollups don't have that delays. So ZKs are much more effective. On the contrary, ZK rollups are right now, they are not EVM equivalent, not EVM compatible. It means that for the projects to move from Ethereum to the L2s, the ZK rollups, it has quite a lot of development to do, development work, redeveloping of the smart contracts. As for the optimistic rollup, they can move to the optimistic rollups way easier, just copy pasting the code.
Thanks, Alina. That's really helpful. And Stani, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, just on the recent ZK EVM announcements and kind of Aave's multi-chain roadmap. I know that there's a variety of or there's a couple L2s at least that you're already on. There's Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon. So just wondering how you think of the I guess the difference between optimistic and ZK, and how you see that going in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very exciting, interesting time at the moment in the L2 space. I mean, in general, I like the idea of actually kind of like having one base layer protocol where you have the main kind of like a security, and that's inherited into the into rollups in different kinds of applications and ecosystems. And personally, I think like the optimistic rollups are a way to get adoption and pressure as well out of the L1 ecosystem, and also get a lot of experimentations already happen in layer twos. And I think like ZK as a technology is very exciting, and it seems that everyone is kind of like doing that now or already and in the future. But I think kind of like it's very early with ZK, especially when it comes to ZK EVM and the technology itself. But it's very promising. I'm super interested to see how things will evolve. But I think where we have now with the ability with optimistic rollups is that we have kind of like the same environment that we have in the mainnet, and use the composability without specifically writing contracts in a different language, and essentially being able to do that transactioning on a layer two is very big value proposition. And that's why we're seeing a lot of adoption and transactioning now happening and moving towards layer twos with optimistic rollups. And I think we'll see like go to the kind of like a paths to being evolved, and it really depends on like kind of like which of the technologies attract specific use cases. But definitely we're still early, and I think like already being able to transact on layer two, which is optimistic rollup, is incredible because it unlocks applications and use cases that were previously very challenging to do so. So for example, like just thinking of like payments processing that you want to actually use on chain has been difficult in the previous times with on mainnet, essentially because you have the high transaction cost, but also you also need to wait the transaction to confirm. And there is like interesting use cases where, for example, when we go all the way to think about, for example, the stablecoin usage in Argentina and in crypto usage in Argentina, most of the transactioning happens from peer to peer, not in a blockchain level, but in a database in Binance. Essentially, the users scanning each other's QR codes or sending each other's addresses the funds. That kind of activity I would love to see going actually on layer two, where the transaction costs are lower and you inherit the security from the underlying network. So there is actually like a market share and demand for transacting in layer twos. And now we are seeing actually the tech being built further. So I'm super excited, and especially because you have all this space growing now.
Thanks, Donnie. And where would you say, or like where does Polygon's proof of stake sidechain, like where do they fit into the like optimistic or ZK rollups? And what's been your experience, I guess, on optimistic rollups versus the proof of stake sidechain from Polygon?
I think like kind of like the story of Polygon started way earlier, before the kind of like idea of thinking about the optimistic rollups or rollups in anyhow. So essentially kind of like acting as a sidechain and taking pressure out of the Ethereum ecosystem. And I see kind of like also like Polygon part of the Ethereum ecosystem to some extent as the rollups, and giving actually that like kind of like a proof of concept space to actually grow in terms of the transactioning environment. So that's why we've seen for the past years a lot of activity in let's say NFTs, gaming in Polygon very early, and this has been the kind of like a solution for that demand that has been seen from the community side and from the usage and the applications being built. But I think like going forward, I think the way to actually build more secure and reliable infrastructure is to scale towards the rollup ecosystem, and this is just like where everyone is kind of going towards in all aspects.
Very interesting, and I know you know, Aave or Lens was just announced and released, and I see that Lens is listening to this as well. So what made Aave decide to choose Polygon for Lens, and on Lens, maybe you can kind of give a quick description of Lens as well, just for the listeners out there. And is there any roadmap to making that multi-chain in the future as well?
Yeah, Lens protocol essentially is a way of creating your profile on chain, and when you have your on-chain profile, you can follow other profiles, and those follow relationships are also tokenized as NFTs, the same way as your profile itself. So when you typically think about social media, is that you lock yourself into one particular platform. For example, it might be Twitter or TikTok, and when you want to actually move your followers to a new application which is trending, or it might have a new way of interacting with content, that necessarily isn't it's not very doable in the Web2 ecosystem. So what Lens protocol does, it really brings the ownership of your social graph into your hands, and essentially makes the application, like builds that application ecosystem and algorithm ecosystem around the users. So you can actually go to those applications where you might find not just find content, but basically find an experience that is reflecting your expectations or values and so forth. Currently, the Lens protocol is built on the Polygon infrastructure, but over time, definitely what we're looking is to figure out how to make it cross-chain and how to actually ensure that the protocol can grow where there's actual demand and space. And this has been like also the way we build protocols and networks in the Aave ecosystem, because Aave ecosystem is a cross-chain protocol, so we went into different networks before other protocols as well. So we see like and that has been very valuable, because we have most of the actual usage, even like in smaller volumes, but more users in chains where the transaction fees are way more lower. So definitely there's going to be a cross-chain strategy at some point future.
Well, we'll have to keep our eyes out for that. But I think that, you know, just talking about Lens, that kind of lends well to segue into just the concept of digital identity. And I know the term digital identity is not new, and maybe to some people it could invoke like some negative connotations, like a social credit score. But in a recent paper, Vitalik wrote about a similar concept of non-transferable soul-bound tokens. And those just represent like the commitments and credentials of an individual for provenance and reputation. So I'd love to hear both of your thoughts on this concept and how that relates to Lens, and on Metis' side, Matrix reputation.
Who's gonna go first?
Whoever. Lena, you can go if you
Okay.
like.
Awesome. Okay, yes, I think this is a very exciting concept, and it might scare some people off because they were thinking kind of like social reputation like China has or something. So this is, I see it as quite opposite, and I see it as a great opportunity, because right now we are talking about, you know, crossed over to like from the blockchain space, from the DeFi to the like real world. And you know that all the financial institutions, they require KYCs. So the reputation scores, so first of all, it could be the new you know, tag that we can introduce that will allow us. So like people, for example, they can do KYC, but they don't need to expose this data to the central authority, to the central party, but it's actually to operate with the social score instead. So if they just display in the reputation badge, the social badge of this KYC being passed. So this is something that could avoid to have them KYCs, but at the same time not to share the data. So like to keep anonymity, and that's what people in the decentralized world, I know that's what they want. Other ways is for example, I saw lots of cases when the DeFi projects and DeFi users, they are especially the new ones, when they come in, they don't realize the risks and they need, some protection and some guidance on what to use, how to use, who to trust. So they don't know. And this is the social scores and social reputation. This is something that can help to guide them, and at the same time, not them to rely on any centralized authority or any centralized body to tell them of actually, or to be that, the big brother that's assure them that, this DeFi project is good, or this feature in the DeFi project is good. So they can judge themselves just from this reputation scores and the reputation power. So as for the what Metis is working on, and this is we're also working on in a decentralized manner on the Matrix reputation. So Matrix is one of the projects that right now is built on Metis, and launching on August 8th. So right now, whitelisting on matrix.buzz, BUZZ, and we already have 1,600 early supporters, people that registered for this launch. So it is a vision to be all of the worlds to serve the internet users that allow anyone easily navigate between Web 2 and Web 3. So Matrix aim to bring data privacy control back to everyone in all areas like social, finance, profession, health, and more. So as there will be the MVP launch, and users can mint social soul-bound tokens, so the ones that Vitalik talked about, and begin collecting NFT badges that accumulate in the reputation power, representing their Web 2.0 and also Web 3.0 community contributions. So that's what Matrix is about, but we also focusing on building a decentralized social hub, not just social media like Lens, but also all things related to social. Users can link and record all social activities to their social NFTs, and in the future decide what to disclose to the new apps and what not to disclose. So as I said, so they will keep the data private, but at the same time can expose their badges when needed for the KYCs.
Yeah, and for me, like it's what I'm very excited about with the cell-bound tokens is that the actually like the use cases are like beyond what we can actually imagine as well. Essentially, because like once you have this ability of like an issuer can actually and you have like some sort of governance process on top of that, like you can create different kinds of interesting use cases. And I think reputation is one of those in the way that you can create different kinds of reputation systems. But on top of that, I could see use cases of incentivization of various things. For example, there's this application built on top of the Lens protocol called teaparty.life, and they're using cell-bound tokens to reward users on curating interesting content on Lens protocol. And as you're earning those tokens, you can actually use them to also submit your own content for curation and create a reward pool. And in one way, it acts also as the reputation. So that's very exciting that I've been looking into. But I think there's going to be probably like use cases that we haven't been thinking about that will take a lot of traction as well.
Very interesting. And I guess when I hear that explained, or when I hear that concept, like to me, I think of like some sort of like an on-chain, like credit rating almost, or like a reputational rating. And I know that Aave, has like Aave Arc, which is more like permission DeFi. But do you think that like reputation and like kind of like rating of these soulbound tokens could be used for permission DeFi in the future? Like maybe not just in institutions, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so, because that could be one way, and it doesn't need to be like KYC, but it can be like other type of things where you want to create additional requirements to join some sort of liquidity pool. Maybe it could be like how you are liquidating on a particular network. That might be like kind of like a one way, and you can create this kind of like a interesting like accessibility or private pools itself. So there's definitely use cases there. The KYC aspect, I think, is one of them. It's kind of something that I think probably will evolve in certain areas. But I'm more interested in terms of like from the reputation perspective than anything else, because that's the field where we can actually use like off-chain data, on-chain data, or some sort of like a community based assessment on rewarding reputation as well. So it's definitely like the area I will see a lot of excitement.
Thanks, Donnie. And then switching gears a little bit, I'd really like to hear both of your views on just liquidity fragmentation across like various L2s and multi-chain dApp deployments. Do you think like bridges are just going to be more common, or how do you think about that liquidity fragmentation at Aave?
I think like with the liquidity fragmentation, it's really like it's an interesting kind of like a topic, because like usually like one of the ideas was that there's going to be like one network, one lending protocol, one DEX, because you have this liquidity fragmentation. But I think like there is different communities and different user base in various of networks, and for example what I've been observing the Metis community from the side is that it's kind of like a more of like an inclusive community, very new in the space, and it definitely has a different kind of Web3 footprint than the other communities where the Aave protocol already is deployed. So I definitely don't see like much of a liquidity fragmentation, especially given that we have seen the protocol itself being deployed on multiple networks, and after each network we still see liquidity being in those previous networks. And usually there is DeFi ecosystems a bit everywhere. So our protocol is one of those which is kind of like a supportive protocol that you actually need to have to establish a like coherent DeFi ecosystem. So I think that's where the value proposition will be more of like servicing the users that will not be interacting on let's say on mainnet or another networks, because they want to use a network where there's low transaction fees, but also the security is inherited from the Ethereum itself. And I think that's where that kind of like a user base is.
Elena, would love to get your thoughts on fragmentation as well.
Yes. Yeah. So liquidity is so basically it's kind of like DeFi flagmanship. So it travels wherever the bigger returns are, and and it travels from one ecosystem to another. So that's how I see it. So it is like whatever's happening to liquidity is basically inevitable, because as we all experimenting, inventing new things, new protocols, doing new innovations, that's where users tend to they travel from one ecosystem to another, like wherever they are, and whoever has probably most functionality, most innovations, and therefore probably most attractive things for the users. So that's where liquidity goes. How it's going to be in the future, probably it's going to be liquid as the same. I don't know. I cannot predict. Is it a good or bad thing? Like, it's not a good or it's not a bad. It's the way it is. And but it is a good indicator, and we use the TVL, the liquidity is as one of the KPIs to see of how they do. But really, as I see it, we're still in the early stage, and this is still kind of like in a testing mode. And DeFi is a test case for the whole decentralized world that we are building, with a vision that actually we will involve the whole, like, not only Web3, companies and innovations, but also the Web2. So eventually, at least, in my future, all other companies, all the world's going to come into the blockchain, and that's where all the liquidity is going to be. So which ecosystem is going to be, how it's going to pan out, it's hard to say right now. Yes, so the bridging solutions are the ones that are used for this, travel and liquidity and liquidity fragmentations. And this is just a normal process. It is on the current days the way that it is. Whether it's going to be like that, maybe not. Maybe we're going to be, maybe we're going to go towards more, like maybe like Stan said, one DEX, one this, one that, or maybe it's going to stay the same. I don't know. But it is, as I said, it's not a bad thing, but this is just kind of like some KPI and indicator for the people, for the users, and where it is, where to go, where to travel, where to go and experiment and use, so which project currently. All very exciting, actually, what everyone is building, and I'm very fascinated to see all the innovations that are going on in our space.
Yeah, definitely. All very exciting and a lot to unpack there. And I know you mentioned kind of like decentralization over time. And then like when it comes to L2s, like how do you think they can be effectively decentralized over time? And I guess like second part to that question, I know that Metis is a decentralized autonomous corporation versus like a DAO. So I was wondering like what the structure difference is between those two.
Oh, yes. So like how we chose the structure to be for like for our internal ecosystem. So we so first of all, we believe that any person can create its own company, like even if it's one person company, so its own company, and be the full-blown member of the ecosystem. But also we will have such as and we call these companies DAC, decentralized autonomous corporations. It could be groups of people, or it can be one person, and they can participate in the voting, decision making, in all the governance, but also the ones that going to realize one of the core functionalities of Metis ecosystem as it's envisioned and is stated in the mission. So they are becoming the eco nodes, which is also DACs, decentralized autonomous companies, but they will have kind of like more privileges because they will be carrying on the missions of the ecosystem. But all is based on the premise that everything is decentralized and everything is governed by the whole community on the principles of equality, and so nobody can get rejected, or nobody can be banned. Of course, there will be the reputation involved, like the matrix RP that is going to be working. So people can choose actually which DEC they can join to and where they want to go. But it is going to be all equal and decentralized. In terms of the layer 2 decentralization, right now, all layer 2s, they are, like, in a sense, they are centralized because they have a single sequencer. It means that there's this single party that writing these transactions batches onto the network. And same for the ZK rollups. It's a single sequencer, but from the security standpoint of view, it's fine. A single sequencer, it is only one honest sequencer is enough for, like, as opposed to like POS, for example, when you ask the question, what is the differences? So on a POS network, you have to have a majority, like let's say that majority of the nodes have to be honest, and they're prone for the 51% attack. In layer 2, they're not, they cannot happen. Like the 51% attack is not an option in there. They're pretty much safe from there. And even when the sequencer is dishonest, so the network just probably freezing, but it cannot write incorrect transactions. So that's the differences, but they still centralized because only one sequencer. And in Metis, we are decentralizing this part as well, because we would like to provide, every node, every node on the community, every node on the community to the right to be a sequencer at the, particular time. So therefore, even that process is going to be decentralized and equal, and the whole community is going to be involved in this, technicality of writing the transactions on the Ethereum mainnet. So that is something that we're building as well. So we're very, very, very big on decentralization. We all believe in the future decentralized world.
Thank you so much for the overview, Elena. Stani, you mentioned earlier that Aave's governance earlier. What are the parameters to make a proposal, and is there a plan to become more decentralized over time?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the decentralization, I'm quite excited on the state that the Aave protocol at the moment is. It's the protocol itself is governed by the community. So the community comes together and votes on different kinds of changes regarding the risk parameters, might be regarding the asset listings as well, or, for example, how to use the treasury and how to fund, for example, different initiatives like the Aave Grants DAO. But also there's sort of kind of like a decision making beyond that happens also in polling through snapshots, for example. So that has been going quite well, and the decentralization of the development is going further. So there's multiple groups of, let's say, developers and also service providers that are providing services directly to the DAO regarding development, audits, formal verification, and risk management as well. So, and of course, there's always more work to do in terms of getting more activity in terms of governing the protocol itself. Vote delegation is, I think, quite nice innovation where we see a lot of votes being delegated to so-called protocol politicians. So I think that has been like a good path to grow upon. But yeah, I think that's more tools on the governance side will definitely help the progression as well.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that explanation. Elena, would like to turn it back over to you as we wrap things up. So could you explain the difference between a DAC versus a DAO structure? Is there any difference at all? I noticed that you could create a DAC via the Metis portal, so would love to hear from you on that.
Yes. So the DAC structure is envisioned to be kind of like a bridge from the Web 2 to Web 3. It's where the companies from like Web 2 world, from the like how we say it, like the fiat world of the real world, the world of business, can actually port their their business structures, their business models onto the blockchain and start using blockchain easily. So that is the vision. So basically, DAC is the tool. So DC it is a tool for them to do so. So DAO is more it's just the concept of the organization being decentralized or governed in a decentralized way. So to whatever model it is chosen by this particular organization. So DAC is a tool and DAO is the organizational concept. So this is the difference. So what we also envisioned for the decentralized for the DACs so it could be centralized company, for example, could be still DAC, and decentralized company could still be DAC as well. So, for example, if Microsoft, let's say, centralized company, transfer their business onto the blockchain, they still will be centralized, but they run their business on the blockchain as a DAC. DAC, it means that they just going to be existing in a decentralized world. So that is the difference. And also DAC, it could be one person. So basically, if you are the one like a company of your own, you can start a DAC and be your own DAC in this tool, in this in our ecosystem.
Thanks, Alina. There's a lot to wrap my head around there. I think someone, yeah.
It is new. I understand. Yes. So as we are progressing through our build, through the building, yes, we're going to be releasing DAC 2.0 functionality soon. It's going to become clearer and clearer. So that is going to be very cool.
It sounds very cool. I just have some more research and reading to do now, but it's very exciting. And I guess I know we have a few minutes left, so I think like a really great question to hear from both of you, just to wrap things up, is what do you both think the next big DeFi innovation will be? I know we've discussed a couple things, a couple different things today, but would love to hear your thoughts. And
Wow, yeah, I mean, I think like this is quite like there's definitely things that can be built in still on like a base layer and optimize the current infrastructure. I definitely believe there is sort of opportunity there and optimizing let's say AMMs and even like how the Aave protocol itself works. Obviously, one of the innovation that is coming from our side is the Go stablecoin, where when you supply assets into the Aave protocol, you're earning on your collaterals, and you can mint Go. An idea is that it's going to be in cross chain as well. So that's something kind of like is slightly innovative on the over collateralized stablecoin aspect. But I think also like I would personally love to see maybe kind of like a DeFi mixed and combined with, let's say, more impactful areas. So, for example, seeing like a, let's say, yield aggregator that doesn't only take into consideration the yield itself, but also maybe other things. For example, how much the protocol is offsetting carbon or donating to Gitcoin or some other kind of like a impactful measures and count and that way kind of like move the liquidity, and that will create like a bigger impact of these DeFi protocols, like making better good and as a public good as well, and making more impact. I think that's something I would love to see more.
Yeah, and when I was listening to Stein, I said, like, okay, this is a very difficult question. How do you answer that? Because it is like when you're predicting something like this is going to be big next thing, like, well, I actually see what what I want to be in DeFi, the big thing. So maybe even small thing. So as the DeFi user, like for example, I go and I use every project that exists in our ecosystem just to see how it actually the end user experience is and how it works. So what I find out in the DeFi space, and that's what it is right now, the usability is still not at the not the highest standard. So that's what I would like to see it to be. So the DeFi become more clear uh, for the people that for the Web2 people, let's say, for the grandmothers, as we say, for example, my grandmother would be able to use it and to understand it, and not only to understand the risks, because right now people that are coming to DeFi, they don't realize the risks. They don't realize that DeFi, even though there are this high yields that are promised, they might not be fulfilled. It's just for the nature, but those who are deeply involved in the space, they understand that, but the newbies, they come and they get burned. And this is something I would like to see on every DeFi project, that this disclaimers, the explainers, the explanation that are gonna go be very visible and explain people the risks. So that's what I would like to see from the DeFi. And of course, the next big things are probably the credit scores and the reputations. Like, for example, if people coming to the DeFi project and different DeFi functionalities, they could see their reputation, their scores of the project, so they could make their own decision based on that. This is something like that. And as well, for the lenders, for example, the credit scores for the lenders, so they would have differentiation in how much they can borrow, and different um, conditions. That this is something that I would love to see in DeFi. And as Tanya say, I definitely agree. We need this some crossover with the real world. That is DeFi is actually not only offering the lending and borrowing and the high yields, but it's actually some bringing some value to the real world as well, so we can have this crossover to the Web2. So, and then we can bring people from outside into our space, because it has some functionality, that some value that provides to the outside world. So that's what I would love to see in DeFi.
Oh, thanks, Elena, and Stani as well. I think both those. I know it wasn't an easy question, but those answers were great, and I totally agree with you. Like how important that education piece is, and like you're saying with some of this reputation of these soulbound tokens, I think that's another way of just building trust and increase transparency in the market as well. And then Stani, on your point just about public goods, I think that's such an interesting area. And I don't know, sometimes it's tough to see past, these really high yields or like ability to make money. But, you mentioned Argentina and, the billions of people that are unbanked in the world. So I think those use cases of, really helping people out and where DeFi and crypto will go is incredibly interesting. So thank you so much for your time and for your answers today. And I think Kat has one last shout out that she'd like to do. But yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you both. And before we sign off here, just wanted to highlight that Blockwork's Digital Asset Summit is taking place the September 13th through 14th in New York City. We would love for the audience to join us if they're able. DAS is an institutionally focused crypto conference for asset managers and financial service professionals. So if that sounds like you, we have some amazing speakers lined up already, including FTX Head of Ventures Amy Wu. We have Danielle DiMartino Booth from Quill Intelligence, and Jurian Timmer from Fidelity Investments, just to name a few. So we're running an exclusive sale this week where you can use the code NYC 250 for $250 off your ticket. So that sale will only be active this week. So if you're interested in attending, or if a few people from your company are hoping to check it out, definitely use that promo code while you can, and we hope to see you there. And again, thank you so much, Stani and Elena. We really appreciate your time and the insights that you provided. And Graham and I will be back next week. So
Thank you so much. So cool to be here.
Thank you so much for having us.
thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Yes.